What is going on, YouTube? Andrew Miller, editor over at Hook'emHeadlines.com, coming back at you today from the Hook'em Horns show. Wanted to talk about some of the transfer portal movement that is happening for the Longhorns today, namely Hudson Card. We saw about a few hours ago at this point, as of me filming now, that Hudson Card intends to enter the transfer portal. This was originally reported by ESPN's Pete Thamel. He mentioned a couple noteworthy things that I'll run down right quick before getting into some of what this means for Texas and, potential landing spots for Hudson Card elsewhere, what he'll bring to the table, and just the generic reaction behind this. So Hudson Card entered the portal. I will get this out of the way with very little surprise to a lot of Texas fans, people in Texas media. After Quinn Ewers won the starting job coming out of fall camp, it felt like a matter of time before Card would enter the portal. He stuck it out. He was an important piece for the Longhorns this season, but yeah. Anyway, get into some of what the report from Thamel mentioned. Pete Thamel, however you end up saying that. So first thing, Card has 3 years of eligibility remaining. He has that COVID redshirt year that he can use, along with just a generic redshirt year, because I believe his true freshman campaign he only played in a handful of games. So he can still make a long-term impact elsewhere. I'll link it below in the write-up that I did for this. If you wanted just more of a generic summary, then I'll link that below. So another thing that I found interesting was that Card mentioned, or at least this report mentioned, that Card is looking for a Power 5 program next, where he'll get a chance to develop and a chance for success. And those latter 2 points are pretty generic, but I think it's notable to say that he's only looking at Power 5, or that he might only be looking at Power 5 programs, or at least that would be his preferred landing spot next, because I personally thought that there could be some interesting Group of 5 landing spots for him. But I don't know if that's a hard, fast thing for him, or if there's a situation that looks really good elsewhere that he'll go there. What I took away from the tidbit saying he's looking for an opportunity to develop and win at his next stop is just that maybe schematically he'll be looking for something that better suits his skill set. What his profile looked like when he was a recruit coming out of high school. He's someone that yet while he has a dual threat nature to his game, I think he's more suited to maybe an air raid or a spread type offense. He's more than capable of using his legs as a weapon. He's got some speed to him, but he's not your generic dual threat quarterback, and he's not going to be running people over out there. So I think just a generic option offense wouldn't be the way to go for him. But anyone that's a Texas fan or that's watched Hudson Card a lot will probably know that. Talking a few things about just my reaction for the transfer news. First off, I mentioned it earlier, this doesn't really surprise me. Background information, or just a quick synopsis: Hudson Card has now lost 2 quarterback battles in the last 2 years. Last year it was Casey Thompson. Let me reverse that. He did win the starting job coming out of fall camp last year. He did originally beat out Casey Thompson, but he was pulled from the game in Texas' second game of the season when they were losing big to Arkansas on the road. Casey Thompson ends up essentially taking the starting job from then on out and never really looked back as far as last season concerned. But then come last offseason, Texas ends up landing a commitment from Quinn Ewers out of the portal from Ohio State, and then Casey Thompson ends up entering the portal. I think a lot of people thought that you would see Hudson Card enter the portal as well, but he stuck it out and saw it through for 1 more year. I will say, he'll be able to get his degree from Texas and then go find somewhere else with, again, 3 years of eligibility remaining to really find his game, find a good situation, make an impact as a starter, and really build his stock for the NFL draft. So I him transferring after this season seemed like something that was not necessarily a given, but pretty close to it. And that's the last point I wanted to make here is like, this is not a big surprise because, Texas has namely Arch Manning coming into the quarterback room with the 2023 class. He should be an early enrollee that arrives in January. Then coming back, you've also got former 4-star, at one point a 5-star, Malik Murphy. He'll be in his second year. And not to mention you have Quinn Ewers coming back. So looking at the quarterback line for Texas, it was figured that Quinn Ewers would be the starter through the end of the 2023 season. And then he would essentially end up passing the torch to a redshirt freshman, Arch Manning, in 2024. So regardless if that timeline holds up, even if something changes there, let's say Ewers wants to stay another year, or, for some reason Arch Manning ends up winning the starting job next year at some point, it was hard to find where Hudson Card fit into the picture here. And this is the last thing I want to say is regarding my initial thoughts for it. I just think he's too good to be sitting the bench. And, he's consistently improved and he's still got a lot of potential. For me, there's really no reason why he should be sticking around on the bench here when, he'll have a plethora of options. There should be a plethora of suitors for him elsewhere. And this is what I wanted to talk about next is, what I think the ideal fit for him would be next, and maybe some generic options or schools that he could have a connection to. Just talking about like what his skill set is and where that fits. I mentioned earlier that he is a bit of a dual threat quarterback. He can run the ball well, but I think his skill set where he's able to stick around in the pocket. Does he have the biggest arm in the world? No, but he's effective in going through his reads. He can get the ball out quickly. He can make a lot of those good quick reads, short, intermediate throws. Deep ball is a little bit inconsistent, but he's effective when you're able to spread him out, go 4 or 5 wide, and then start picking apart opposing defenses with, again, some of those quick, short, intermediate throws. You saw that this season in games like West Virginia, at times against Tech, but I didn't like the game plan heading into that. Texas was still kind of relying on the base offense for Sark, 3 wide, and, some more complicated throws, still looking deep a lot to Xavier Worthy, and again, that's not really the strength of Hudson Card's game. The deep ball and just the timing of it got a little bit better for him as time went along, but again, he's not, the Quinn Ewers has had a lot of trouble with the deep ball this season. Just the generic point I'm trying to make here is that, Hudson Card's not that ideal big arm deep ball thrower. Now, again, you can still use that dual threat part of his game, spread option. I think, especially if it's still more of a pass heavy spread option, that I still think that's something that's doable for him. So that could be an offense that he fits in. Air raid, sure. Spread offense, sure. Anything more of that nature. Again, I mentioned the West Virginia game where Sark really just molded the offense for Card to more of a standard spread. You saw Texas going 4 or 5 wide oftentimes, which is not common for Sark if you're just talking wide receivers out wide. And Card had a really good game. He looked comfortable, went for over 300 yards, I believe 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, against a defense in West Virginia that definitely wasn't the best in the Big 12, but at the time I still think was formidable enough that was an impressive game for Card. That was, in my opinion, the best game of his career in his most recent start. So he looked good there. But in terms of a few potential landing spots that I think could be ideal for him out of the portal, one that has stuck out to me, and I've mentioned this in previous shows if you all watch some of the weekly shows we do, I've mentioned NC State. I think NC State could be an interesting one for him. You have the Tim Beck connection. Tim Beck was the lead recruiter for Hudson Card when he was still the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach on Tom Herman's staff at Texas. He is now the offensive coordinator at NC State under Dave Doran. I think that Devin Leary is headed out at NC State. He was, one of the standout quarterbacks heading into this season, and just unfortunately suffered a season-ending injury about halfway through conference play, and so he is NFL draft eligible. I think he's still going to be an early round pick, or at least has the potential to be, depending on how he responds from this upper body injury, goes through the draft scouting process. So enough about him, though. I do think that NC State could be an interesting one for Card, where I don't know who the next in line necessarily at NC State is right now. Saw Jack Campbell a little bit, Ben Finley. No one that really stuck out as like he's the guy that's next up after Devin Leary. Again, assuming Leary doesn't come back, then I do like that spot for Card. Again, it's a pretty solid winning ACC program that Card would have a good supporting cast when he got there right away, a chance to make some ACC title games. NC State was pretty close to getting there this year. Some unfortunate injuries, bad slip-ups, and conference play. They were 1 or 2 games away from getting there. Definitely, I think if they had Devin Leary in there, would have had a great shot to end up playing, I believe it's UNC in their division, that they could have gotten the title game against Clemson. If I'm getting the divisions there wrong, that's my bad on that. But anyway, another one that I find interesting would be a spot like Oregon. Oregon might be a little bit of an ambitious fit, and I've kind of got a replacement. If we're just talking about the type of fit that we're looking for here, where, yes, obviously a big Power 5 program with some real potential. Oregon runs a spread option right now. Bo Nix is the starting quarterback this season. He's faster than Hudson Card, but I think Hudson Card's got the more consistent arm, doesn't make as many mistakes. So I think that offense could definitely be molded to him. That could be a nice fit where he could win right away in the Pac-12. If you're looking for another, situational fit, depending on the quarterback situation, because Bo Nix could enter the draft next year, so if that opens up the spot at Oregon, I think that's something to watch. Another one would be Penn State, depending on what happens with Sean Clifford. He's a redshirt senior, could enter the draft. I don't even know if he's got any eligibility left, honestly. I would have to check on that, but Penn State has some ties to him here. I do believe their offensive coordinator, I would need to look back at names here, was spearheading a recruitment for him. Is that at Arkansas before? I'd need to look this up here, but there are past connections on that staff to Hudson Card. It's an air raid offense. It's not running at the same tempo as as even a Texas or an Oregon, but at least most of the time, but it's still something that could schematically fit to Hudson Card's strengths. So that could be another one to watch if if they're looking for a quarterback in the portal. The last one that I think could be pretty intriguing, and I guess I could give one group of 5 fit if he's willing to look beyond that. But the last one that I really wanted to mention, and again, it's situational here, but it could be a good fit, is Auburn. We don't know yet what's going to happen with Auburn's offensive coordinator, so obviously that makes all the difference here. But Auburn is going to be looking for a new quarterback. They're going to be looking for a new direction. They just hired Hugh Freeze, what was it, yesterday? And so depending on who they hire as an offensive coordinator, if there's the connection and that fits Hudson Card's skill set, again, that's a place where I'm assuming Hugh Freeze will make an impact and really hit the portal hard. So there will be a chance for Hudson Card there to literally develop from the ground up. Will that be the ideal situation he's looking for with so much transition going on within the program? I don't know, but that would certainly be a place that would give him the opportunity to succeed and play at a high level right away in the SEC. Potentially, depending on when Texas makes the transition to the SEC, face them again before too long. And this is the last thing I wanted to mention here when it comes to Hudson Card's potential landing spots is I don't know. I heard before that he might not want to stick around in the Big 12, which takes a lot of the potential landing spots for him that I would mention anyway out of the realm of possibility. I wouldn't rule out, a possibility of like a Oklahoma State, depending on what happens at TCU with Max Duggan, maybe a spot like that, or even, a program that's transitioning into the Big 12, like a UCF or like a Cincinnati. So I don't know there. That'll be interesting to see. But anyway, that's pretty much it on the Hudson Card front. I did want to go down the list because, again, Longhorn-centric show, but I know that a lot of people are interested about what's happening with Hudson Card right now and where he could go next. We'll link up all that in the description below. There were about a half dozen other transfers for Texas that were announced today. There are at least intentions to transfer because the window officially opens on December 5th. Going to go down the list here and just give some initial thoughts, but we'll end up expanding on this conversation for just Texas portal entries and potential targets in general. End up doing a show later this week, probably recording that tomorrow. for one. And I think this was probably, I don't know if this was the most impactful necessarily, but probably the most talented of the transfers today was Troy Omeire. He was the first one to enter the portal. Third-year wide receiver, has a ton of talent, just ran into injury issues. I'll be interested to see where he goes next, but the transfer doesn't necessarily surprise me. I do believe this was the second one today, was, oh my God, I'm losing the name. Actually, I don't know if he was the second or the third. Second was Prince Dorba. Yeah, he was the second, third-year edge rusher, former four-star kid out of Highland Park. Just saw his, kind of got buried on the depth chart as the season went along. Third one was, I do believe, J.D. Coffey, second-year safety. Should have 3 or 4 years of eligibility remaining. Yeah, I believe 3. He was kind of surprising to me. I thought he would have a chance at some more playing time next season, depending on what happened with some of the safety attrition for Texas this coming offseason. But he showed potential at times. I thought he had a lot of talent, but again, interesting to see if he is just testing the waters also, or if he is definitely on his way out. The post on Twitter made it sound like he's doing more than just testing the waters, but we'll see, because I still think he had a shot to make the 2 deep next year if he had a really big offseason. Another one that was not necessarily surprising at this point, but that I thought had potential over the long term was DJ Harris, 6'2", about 235-pound edge rusher, outside linebacker. Early in his career, he came up with his first sack. I believe that was last season, and from then on out, I really thought that he was going to be destined to get a few more reps with PK's defense, but really didn't have much production since then. Like a couple dozen defensive snaps over the last 2 seasons. He's got, I believe, 3 or 4 years of eligibility remaining. On the offensive side of the ball, we had Andre Karich, third-year offensive tackle. Again, kind of surprising, but given the level of offensive line recruiting from Kyle Flood in the last couple of years, the offensive line attrition was to be expected. So he looks like one of the casualties there. Hudson Card, obviously, talked about him. And then the last transfer, I do believe, is second-year cornerback, former 4-star recruit, Jameer Johnson. Jameer Johnson, at one point this year, was the third cornerback behind Deshaun Jameson and Ryan Watts. But as the season moved along, you saw Terrence Brooks playing better. At times, it was a lot more effective to just move Jahdae Barron from nickel over to field corner, and that was more effective. I mean, Jalen Gilbo, he was playing nickel for pretty much the entire season, but from what we heard coming out of camp, he might be a long-term fit at corner too. You still have Austin Jordan. You have Malik Muhammad. It's just, corner is going to be pretty deep for a while, and so given some of the struggles that Jameer Johnson faced on the field this season, and he really saw his reps decline as the season went along, it doesn't surprise me very much that he's in the portal either. But at one point, he was a significant part of the cornerback rotation. So, again, be another guy where it'll be interesting to see where he lands next. But yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of portal movement already today, and we're not even to the point of bowl selection yet. But conference championship week at this point is the start of portal discussion, and it's just the floodgates have already started opening a little bit in the last few days after the conclusion of most teams' regular seasons. So, anyway, that is pretty much it. I will link quite a few things down in the description below. Our transfer portal tracker, that if you're just looking to get a quick synopsis of who's in the portal and some basic background for them, that's the place to do it. The write-up on Hudson Card, and then anything else that we have coming out, we'll have a video, or I'll have an article coming out in the next couple hours on potential landing spots for Hudson Card. A little bit more detail on that. So once we're done with that, that'll be linked up below as well. But anyway, for Andrew Miller over at HoganHeadlines.com, that's pretty much it. Welcome.